Welcome to Stress Less Obsessed, the podcast. My name is Sophie Deans, and I'm here to bring you all things on self-care, self-development, as well as lifestyle tips and hacks to keep your life as simple and stress-free as possible. So let's make a start and join me on a journey of living a life with less stress. Hello, my loves. Thanks for coming back for another episode of Stress Less Obsessed, the podcast. Now, today I want to talk to you about boundaries. You know, sometimes when we're stressed, we're unhappy, we're overwhelmed, and we kick ourselves. And I hate to say it, but we're partially to blame. Not always, of course, let's be honest. But some of us have said yes to things, for example, that just don't light us up. And perhaps we've offered to do things and then we end up resenting it. Maybe you feel obligated to do things because we feel that's what a good person would do. Maybe being a good person, a good friend, a good colleague, that's what they would do, right? Well, I want to challenge that thought today because what we have failed to consider is the negative effect that obligation would have on ourselves, on our mental health, and probably our partner or family and friends, anyone that we have relationships with. So when we're prioritizing ourselves, we can give our best to everybody else as well. Like the saying, and I feel like I say this every episode, about having to fill your cup. You just can't pour from an empty cup. You just can't. So by keeping our cup full, we're then able to give more to others and without resentment. Because that way we know we haven't already given too much of ourselves away. So yes, what I'm talking about, it all comes down to boundaries, which I have a feeling that women tend to be worse at maintaining boundaries or even knowing what their boundaries are, as women tend to have more empathy, not always, just generalizing, tend to be known to be more empathetic and have that care role. So that's why, times are changing, but as the traditional primary caregivers, women are known traditionally for putting themselves last in the order of taking care of the entire family first. Not just that, but with high levels of stress in personal and professional lives, there becomes a breaking point. And it can be so hard to juggle between personal and professional, perhaps family obligations and friend obligations. There you go. I said it again, obligations. And it's really hard to try and maintain balance between all these different areas of our lives and be looking after ourselves and putting ourselves first without being selfish. I used to be very bad at maintaining boundaries. I would say I'm not sure even if how many boundaries I had, to be honest. I always was a yes person. I always said yes to things because I wanted to help others, and I didn't really take into consideration the negative impact that helping out everybody as and when they needed it, what kind of effect that would have on my energy levels and my mental health, and how I felt about the people then that asked me. So boundaries is something I've worked on myself, and I started working on that probably maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and now I'm really, really good at upholding and actually even knowing what my boundaries are, because that could be really difficult to start with. So let's see, how can you tell, first of all, even if you need to work on your own boundaries? Some real telltale signs are that you're feeling resentful and you feel like people take advantage of you. Maybe you always feel that you're giving, give to everyone, but no one ever gives back to you. That could be a telltale sign. Another one, just like the issue I had, is that you don't know how to say no to things that you don't want to do. Something might not be high on your priority list, or you may have wanted to prioritize something else this weekend, and then you get asked to do something, and you're just like, yes, and you don't even know why you said yes. Even prioritizing everyone else, that's just in a lot of people's nature, that they want to help everybody else, and only then at the end of it do they notice that their own needs are neglected. And that could be as well if you have a family, or it could be if you're in a relationship, it could be if you're supporting friends or family, and you're just not making that time for your own needs, and that's something you're noticing. If you're also starting to avoid people getting closer to you due to feelings like you already have so much and so many people and their responsibilities and obligations going on, that could be another sign if you feel too overwhelmed with that. And if you feel like you don't even get any appreciation or very little appreciation for what you do, then that is a sign that you're starting to feel resentment. If you're stressing out and you're more concerned about letting people down because you've signed up for too much, that additional pressure is then being added to yourself, then that is also another sign that you need to start enforcing some boundaries. So, first things first, why not think about what your boundaries are? This is a huge step for those of you that are a yes person. How can we begin enforcing boundaries if we aren't sure what our limits are? This can be so difficult, and if we're always saying yes because we want to be liked, because we want to be known as being super helpful, because we want to be praised, and then we've realized we've taken on too much and then we end up frazzled. Does that sound similar? Why not take note of anything else that comes to mind? Are there any situations that come up when I say that? Any situations recently that you've said yes to because you felt you had to? Now, look, obviously, sometimes we must do things we don't want to do, or things that we would prefer not to do. But we're not looking to start being selfish here. There's a balance. And sometimes we need to set a precedent if we are finding, especially people just taking advantage of us, or we're feeling like they are. And we feel like we're going above and beyond our means on a regular basis. So, just to get your juices flowing, if there isn't anything that comes to mind so far, that's great. Maybe you have excellent boundaries, and maybe you just haven't thought of anything just yet. So, some things I can bring to mind is overtime at work. Now, what is your boundary or limit on this if you have one? And if you are working longer hours at work, is that something that you find negatively impacts you, or is it something that you thrive in? Are you keeping a balance with your personal life if you are working those extra hours? Or do you feel like if you're employed, your employer is taking advantage of you? Because those negative feelings is what you don't want to feed into. Not just that, but is that eating into perhaps the time that you had planned to go to the gym? Is that then affecting your physical health and your opportunity to get to the gym and exercise, is that then affecting your mental health? Because we all know that exercise is a stress buster. It might not even be work. Maybe you're always getting invites into different social events. And because you don't know how to say no, because you're free that day. So, yes, of course, I'll come, even though I, even though it's too far, or even though I've already got 4 other things on that weekend, but I'm free at 4 p.m. No, if you don't know how to say no, that's really going to stress you out. If you're jam packing your weekends because you feel obligated to and you're not taking time for yourself, that's obviously going to affect your mental health and even your physical health if you're not taking time to rest. And look, I've been there. I used to think that I had to go to everything I was invited to. Either that or I would need to come up with a genuine, real reason why I was unable to make it, or why I wouldn't make the effort to rush around and try and attend, when the real reason perhaps I didn't want to go was because I already had lots of things on that weekend, or I had already planned to do something for myself. And when I discovered that I needed to work on my boundaries to fill my cup a bit more, it actually enabled me to feel more positively about my relationships and my friendships, and being completely honest for the reasons why I could not or would not attend a social event actually gained me huge respect amongst my friends. And you know why? Because it allowed them to do the exact same thing. And me and my friends have a mutual understanding that sometimes just because one person wants to do something and we're invited along, that we all only have so much energy. And if that isn't a priority for someone else, that's absolutely fine. And we will be completely honest about that. Or if it's something where, look, I don't have anything on Sunday, but I really need Sunday to decompress, absolutely fine. We do not need to make up an excuse as to why, like, oh, sorry, I'm not sure if I can make it. No, set your boundary right then and there, and then you don't have to even stress about trying to come up with an excuse, um, making up a white lie, and you will set a precedent and a mutual understanding that is literally just about looking after yourself. I feel like this just touches the surface because there are so many ways we can enforce boundaries, but it does initially start with what we need and recognizing what we need. And some of those things you'll need to look back and think about the times when you felt resentment, or you were sat there thinking, why am I going to this thing? Why am I doing this thing? And again, balancing it with not being selfish. You want to be a good friend still, but maybe you don't want to go to every single event that your friend invites you to. Maybe it's a networking event, for example. But look, I'll give you some of my examples, and it might rouse a few of your own. So one of mine is my boundaries is, or one of my needs, I should say. I'm not enforcing my boundary yet, but one of my needs is I need good quality sleep. I must have good quality sleep. That is one of my boundaries. And that's something I will prioritize because it has a complete domino effect on the rest of my life, and it touches every area of my life. If I do not get a good night's sleep, or, I can handle 1 or 2 nights, but if I'm repeatedly not getting a good night's sleep, that does not go down well. And it's something that I know I will and want to prioritize. I also know that I need downtime. I'm an introvert, And so I charge my batteries away from other people and taking space to myself. So, whether that is making sure I don't fully pack my weekend with social plans, or just making sure I do have a day or an evening to myself, um, doing something I love. A weekend of hell for me is probably a weekend socializing nonstop, especially with people I don't know. So that it's a little bit different when you're with those very close connections. You can relax, but for me, having deep conversations with people I don't know that well would be very draining and drain my batteries. So if I was going to have a day of meeting new people, I would definitely know that I need some downtime the next day to recharge again. Another one of my boundaries that has been a fairly recent adjustment. When I say recent, I'm talking in the last year or two. And I know that I need to surround myself with positive and uplifting people. Not to say that when my friends are a bit down, I'm out of there, because that is not the case. It's more about not being around those people that sap your energy, that constantly draining you, bringing the negative vibes. I mean, I think we all know the people when you come away from a social engagement, a catch up, whatever, a dinner, and you don't feel uplifted. You're just like, ugh, those type of people. Now, I know that I need to make sure I'm surrounding myself with people who are doing the opposite of that. And I walk away feeling like, oh, I had such a great day. Oh, that was so nice. Oh, that's so great. And hopefully, it sounds obvious, but hopefully, we're not feeling obligated to surround ourselves with people of the opposite. And I feel like we do that a lot without even thinking about it. That does not mean quit your job because you don't like Susan, who sits in finance. That's not what I'm saying at all. Obviously, those types of situations, we can't just completely avoid people who drain us, but I think we should be completely mindful of how much time we spend with those type of people. So that's one of my big ones. And I probably have heaps and heaps more, but just another example for you is I don't like to be rushed and I like to plan things out. So if someone is rushing me, actually, two of my friends will know about this recently as we've just booked a trip to Perth. I don't like to be rushed into booking things, and it I guess we were all sat around at the table and they're like, yay, we're going to book flights. Let's look at accommodation. And I'm like, guys, I am 99% sure I'm coming, but I just need some time to collect my thoughts before I book this. And so they went ahead and they booked their flights. And I guess it might even have been about a week later, but I booked myself onto the same flight. Maybe this is just a me thing, but that's my boundary. I don't want to book something in the rush of the heat of the moment and then turn around and resent them because, oh, they pressured me into booking it. Oh, why did I book that? Oh, I didn't think about this. I didn't think about who's going to look after the dog. I didn't think about how I was going to get there from Bali, like things like that. So obviously I have great friends and they were totally fine with that. So there you go. There's some of my boundaries. So, if I go through the list, how do I enforce these boundaries? Well, for sleep, I make sure that I am getting enough sleep by not getting up too early or making plans too early. And I communicate this. So when I was personal training, I was working corporate in an office, but I was doing training. I was happy to do training aside from that. And I had quite a few people who wanted to do training sessions really early. And I did for a bit. I did a few sessions before going into the office. So I think I was doing 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. sessions. yeah, and then it got to the point where I was feeling like I needed to prioritize my sleep. And so when people wanted to do earlier sessions, I just said, I'm sorry that I'm not I'm not taking clients at that time, and that was a boundary for me. Now, I could have accepted that client because that was the only time they wanted to do. Then I could have ended up resenting them or resenting my training, which I was really enjoying. It gave me a huge sense of purpose. I love doing it. I was doing it on the side, so it wasn't my main source of income, and I didn't want to turn that hobby, I guess, into something that then I didn't enjoy. So I was protecting my boundary so I would still enjoy training. I would still enjoy getting a good night's sleep and not having to get up too early, and then potentially being too tired in the office. And there have been times where I have been working in corporate in an office, and that same day I've been asked if I can stay online until 8 p.m. And I've never minded doing it as a one off, but when it becomes regular and that starts to impact when I have aerial yoga classes 1 day a week, that's my only time to exercise. And that's such a great outlet mindfully for me as well, then that's when I have had to set my boundaries, just like other people did, which I noticed as well. Other people in the business would say, oh, I can't do tonight. So I think although we all want to show ourselves in our best light, especially professionally, don't fail to notice that other people will enforce their own boundaries, and you need to do the same as well. Obviously, if you're free and you can and you want to help, that's great. But you just need to be mindful of what you're neglecting in order to take something else on board, and whether you're going to resent that or not, and if it's going to negatively impact you. You know what? Saying no is not easy. It sounds easy, it is not. And will you feel guilty the first few times you say no to whatever it is? If it's work, if it's your friends, will you feel guilty? Yes, you will feel so guilty, but it gets easier, trust me. And the more you say no nicely, obviously, the more you say no, the easier it will get, and the more respect people will have for you, because they will know that when you say yes, you genuinely mean it, you genuinely want to help, and when you say no, you genuinely can't. I mean, surely you've noticed when maybe you've asked somebody for a favor and they say yes, but you can kind of tell that it's a no, but then you feel bad. But wouldn't you rather know outright and then have someone give a full yes, like hell yeah, rather than oh yeah, I can, but because then you feel bad. So I think honesty is the best policy. I have another good example actually, and it's not one of mine. It's someone I know. I won't tell on them, but somebody I know has always said, I don't usually offer giving, trips to the airport. If someone's going on holiday, I don't usually offer to pick them up or drop them off. I mean, I can understand that, because who likes airport drop-offs? Honestly, I feel like they are more trouble than they're worth. The last time I got picked up from the airport by my partner, actually, it took me longer to find him than it did to literally just if I just booked an Uber or just jumped in a taxi myself. It was just a nightmare after a 24-hour flight. So completely understandable. But, sometimes there will be times where someone might ask you to drop them off at the airport. And look, you really don't want to do that, but they would do the same for you. So, you're not selfish, then you might want to do that. Or you can just have the rule like the person I know has. It's like, sorry, I don't do airport drop-offs and I will never ask you to do one either. Technically, they're actually enforcing their own boundary by doing that. So that's awesome. So basically, I guess that will be a bit of a wrap to this episode. I hope I've inspired you to, first of all, find out what your boundaries are and think about those so that you can begin enforcing them and set precedents and be consistent so people will know, oh, actually, I won't ask Sophie to drop me off at the airport because I know she doesn't like that. You'll never get asked to do that. You'll never feel obligated to do that again. Trust me. So have a little think and, it'll start to allow more understanding and respect amongst your friendship groups. They will probably become more comfortable with enforcing their boundaries as well. And you're probably, because you're feeling hopefully less resentment towards your friends, if any, or partner or family members, if you were, from withholding your from going through these obligations, then your relationships should become stronger and you'll just build on that foundation. It's so good to just be honest and not have to come up with excuses or, oh, can I let you know? Like, just nip it in the bud. You will feel so much better and everyone else will just know where they stand as well. I just can't see any negatives here as long as you're just being your good, authentic self and still being caring, not taking the boundary path too far and being selfish. It's a win-win. It's all about balance. So there you have it. I hope this episode's been helpful. And take some time to go and have a look and discover what you would like to enforce as your big number one boundary and then start practicing that. Could be over your energy, it could be over your money, it could be over your emotions. It would definitely affect your well-being, but the power is 100% in your hands. So take it away, and I'm so looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. If you're enjoying Stress Less Obsessed, the podcast, or the meditations, hopefully both, please take a minute out of your day to follow me and rate or review the podcast on the platform you're listening on. Honestly, this would mean the world to me, as it will mean I can extend my reach further to help others who want to find ways to improve their well-being, and at the same time, we can grow the Calm Collective Facebook group community even more. So there'll be more support for each other, it will become more active, and it will mean I can get more of your input, and you listeners make this podcast what it is. So the more members, the better. Thank you so much in advance. You can tick this one off your act of kindness list for today, and that'll help you feel good for the rest of the day. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Stress Less Obsessed, and thanks for listening. Until next time, breathe and stress less.